Hello everyone, my name is Gabby and welcome back to another Hugtto Precure review. This time reviewing episode 8. Homari's old figure skating partner Henri shows up and asks for her to pursue her skating career further in Moscow with him. But Homari rejects him, explaining that here she's met Hana and Saya and they've shown her a whole new world. A monster appears and the girls fight it, Homari's love for her friends causing her second Mirai crystal to form. Intrigued by all this, Henri joins their school hoping to learn the secrets of his heart too. So, what did I like about this episode? Well, first of all, I honestly really enjoyed Henri as an antagonist and this almost kind of like rival figure to Homari, especially if you compare it to Saya's rival last episode. They could have made Henri a very sort of kind of one-dimensional character who's just sort of like exemplifies all these ideas of like, wanting Homari to go somewhere else and abandon her friends and pursue her skating career above all else. But honestly, I feel like they kind of gave a lot of layers to Henri's character that we saw in this episode. He's not just some kind of snobbish kid. I mean, he's sort of a little bit snobbish, but he's also got some other personality traits to him. Like, he's a bit sort of snobby, and he's also a bit kind of effeminate, and he's also kind of blunt. Maybe this is just some kind of anime figure skating archetype thing, and if I've actually watched something like Yuri on Ice, this would seem kind of cliche and sort of not very interesting. But as someone who hasn't watched Yuri on Ice, the character like this feels very kind of interesting and sort of multi-dimensional, and I wasn't really expecting that. It also helps that at the end of the day, he doesn't really end up as a villain. He's not the victim of the week, and he actually starts kind of getting interested by Homari's point of view and kind of ends up joining the supporting cast. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting him to kind of just be a one-off villain, but the fact that they're bringing him back, it just makes things a bit more interesting. I also liked how Henri sort of ended up questioning and challenging Hana, in that he confronts Hana over what she can potentially do to help Homari compared to him, and when Hana answers that she can cheer her on, Henri kind of questions it, in that he kind of explains that first of all, cheering somebody on is something that really anyone can do. It's not necessarily something that only Hana can do. And second of all, the fact is, cheering somebody on doesn't always necessarily help them. If they've got a specific mindset, being cheered on can often kind of lead to more pressure and not necessarily help the situation. It helps that it doesn't seem like Hana has really gotten the answer to this question either. It seems like this is still some kind of almost like an existential crisis for her that she's going to be dealing with the next few episodes. And that's kind of interesting. That's a sort of character arc that I'm going to be very interested to see the end of if that ends up kind of happening. I mean, with Homari, it basically explains that once she kind of got the courage to not run away, the cheering actually did help, so it wasn't an issue for her, but it still could be an issue, and I hope they do go further with it. As for what I didn't like about this episode, well, once again, it's basically the same issue I had with last episode, that basically once we got to the fighting, the sort of power-up moment was honestly really kind of weak, in that the reason as to why Homari got her second Mirai crystal was because she basically started thinking about how much she treasures her time with her friends and how that's not wasted time for her, and she had these really strong feelings about those kinds of ideas. The issues I had with it were, first of all, the trigger for it, the trigger for her sort of having those feelings in the first place was incredibly weak, and it was literally just the villain saying that she didn't want them to waste her time. Like, that's basically all she said. And then Homari goes into this entire speech about wasted time and how there's no such thing as wasted time, and that it was not a very strong motivation, I feel like. For something that was so small and felt like such a throwaway line by the villain, you don't expect it to be that thing that's going to lead into a big heroic speech that ends in a power-up. And second of all, that theme, the theme about like wasted time and about time with her friends and how much she cares about her friends, I feel like it wasn't necessarily like, the core main theme of this episode. I mean, it was kind of a theme in that Henri at the start was basically explaining that he wanted to get Homari because they were running out of time before their senior debut, and basically, he wanted to make sure that she was ready for that. But there were a whole bunch of other things in this episode, like questioning of Hana and sort of talking about how Homari has changed and all these other things. So as a result, I don't feel like the power-up was really necessarily like fully related to the themes of this episode. It was related to one of the themes, but not all of the themes, so it kind of makes it feel a little bit weak. Also, now that this is the second time this has happened, I can finally mention this because it's been kind of getting a bit on my nerves, and so these characters, their power-up moments involve them getting these new Mirai crystals, but they don't actually use those Mirai crystals From what I can tell, it's because the new Mirai crystals are going to be used for when they get their new weapons at some point in the near future, and that's why they're being created in the first place. But it makes it very odd that you see these characters kind of getting resolved, getting a power-up, having this new plot trinket thing forming from their heart right in front of them, and in the end they don't actually use it. Having those stronger attacks actually doesn't require them to use it. They just get stronger attacks because they, I guess, know more about themselves. It's a little bit strange if you really think about it. So, as for next episode, well, everyone is going hiking. And to be honest, I'm actually not really sure what kind of episode this is going to be, because it doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be Hana's power-up episode, and we're also being introduced to a new character who seems like she might actually be a bit more important than you'd initially think. You know, if you've seen all the merchandise leaks and stuff like that. So it is kind of interesting, because I don't really know what direction the show is going to go, because there's two things that clearly are probably going to happen at some point in the future, and that are the characters get their weapons, and the sixth ranges, and we've sort of gotten random sort of hints for these things, but I don't really know which thing's going to come into fruition and when and why and what's the context. So I'm going to be really interested to see what happens next episode. So that was Hugtto Precure episode 8. I think it was a pretty decent Homare episode, although I don't think it was really that special in terms of a kind of a power-up episode. I feel like it had a bit more interesting characters and a bit more of an interesting dynamic than the Saya episode, but maybe it helps that we actually know more about Homare than we did know about Saya at this point of the story. Once again, like with Saya's stuff, the fact that we have Henri still here kind of leaves things a bit open. It doesn't feel like anything is really resolved yet. It does feel like there are still more opportunities to do more character-focused episodes and power-ups and whatever, all those kinds of things. So I am kind of interested to see it. And I do think this episode succeeded in what it wanted to do. The one issue with following Precure right now is I haven't really found one really good place where somebody just dumps like all of the spoilers like they did when I was following Dragon Ball Super. So I kind of don't really know what information is coming out and what episode's going to be next and what's going to be interesting about them. So I'm kind of left in the dark here, but we're probably reaching the point where we're going to be getting to a few sort of climactic moments soon, and that's going to be really cool because Hugtto has not really had those yet, and those moments are going to be the moments where I feel like as a series it's really going to prove itself. So I'm really interested to see that. So this is Gabby signing out, and I'll see you all next week. Bye guys!